Hey y'all, and welcome back to Krista's Kitchen. I've missed y'all so much. I figured I'd bring y'all a quick lunch crock pot, or we're gonna do this as a pressure cooker recipe, but for some cheeseburger soup. So as you can hear, Michael's outside mowing. Sorry for that noise, but I figured I'd show y'all how simple you can make a meal all in one pot and get things going while you're doing other things, like we're cleaning house and everything today. So we are making cheeseburger soup today, and we're using our Ninja Foodi. I already have it heating up, and it's on the sear and saute function. And I'm just going to get a pound of ground meat going in here while I open up our cans and prep the rest of our stuff. I am using a ton of our Misfits veggies. I say a ton. I'm using 4 Misfits veggies, and trying to use those up and just making a quick lunch that's going to be yummy also. But first thing in is a pound of ground beef. We're just going to break this up and brown it while we get the rest of our ingredients going. So I just have a small yellow onion that I've chopped up already. I diced kind of small sliced 3 medium Misfits carrots. And you don't have to have Misfits, just regular 3 carrots, or about a cup. Maybe a little over, because I usually tend to overdo the veggies. You need about a cup of chopped celery, and then about 4 cups of diced potatoes. I used, again, my Misfits potatoes, so they were quite large in this box. So it only took, I probably have more, closer to 5.5 cups of potatoes, but I'm going to use it all because that's my 3 large Misfits potatoes. But about 4 cups is what you need. You can even use the canned potatoes if you want. I didn't know for the longest time that potatoes, you could get potatoes in a can, but use about 4 cups, so probably about 2 cans of potatoes would be plenty. And then we're going to use 2 cans of chicken broth. And since I'm trying to clean out my pantry and clear things out so we can kind of start afresh for the summer, restock everything, make sure we're moving the old out with the new, I'm going to use 2 cans of chicken broth. And then we're going to just season it with some basil, some parsley, some salt, pepper, some Worcester sauce, a little bit of garlic. And at the end, we'll toss in our milk and heavy cream and cheese to make it all cheeseburger-like. Now, I looked in the freezer, and because we're trying to use up what we have, I don't have any real bacon. And I know I drive my family crazy, but I like the fake bacon bits on my salad more than the real bacon for my salads. So we have some of the fake bacon bits. I'm going to use that on top of this for our little garnish and topping. But if you have real bacon or real bacon bits, feel free to use those too. That's what I would usually use for this soup, but you use what you have, and I'm trying to use up, like I said, freezer stuff. And we're just out of bacon already, so Eleanor is going to struggle with that in this next month when we clean out our freezer, because that child loves her some bacon. We're just browning this up. I'm going to give it another minute or so, and I'm using my little off-brand Pampered Chef chopper to make it nice and small chunks. But I'm going to give it just a minute or so more while I grab a paper towel so we can soak out some of this grease that's in here. Now that that's nice and lean, we're going to toss in about a cup of celery. Now, I have mine from my freezer, and no, I don't measure. I'm just going to toss in a pretty good bit. This is some celery that I got before and I wasn't going to use it all up, so chopped and put it into the freezer and it works wonders. It's nice to have on hand too. And then a medium yellow onion, I'm tossing in. We're going to add in our seasonings, but I like to get these sauteing a little bit before we put the pressure lid on. I'm just trying to keep these separate, but if a few carrots pop in at this point, it'll be okay. It's not going to hurt anything. I just like the onions a little more, well, there went one rolling, a little more softened before the lid goes on, so they get that, I don't know, I feel like it gives it a little bit of a different texture when the onions are actually a little cooked before they're pressure cooked. I'm going to turn this down to medium. If yours only has 2 settings, I would turn it down to low, just so we don't burn the garlic and things as we put this in. I'm just going to put in about a tablespoon of minced garlic. I got some on here. And then we're going to do about a tablespoon of parsley, and probably about a teaspoon of basil. There we go. We'll give it a few splashes of the Worcestershire sauce, just to give it some depth to it. I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. Now we may need some more salt at the very end because we are using a low sodium chicken broth, but I'd rather be under salted at this point than over salted. Okay, y'all. We're going to let that cook for just a minute. I do have some dandelion greens that I don't usually put in this, but I have them left over from my Misfits box, so I am going to toss them in here to use them up. But you can skip this next step if you want, or if you don't have dandelion greens. Again, I'm just using something to add some more vegetables to it and use up what I've got. So I'm going to let this cook for just a minute to soften those onions a little bit more. Okay, y'all. So we're going to toss in our carrots, our potatoes, and our chicken broth, and get the last step going, or the next to last step. So, like I said, if you don't have dandelion greens or you don't want to, you can skip this step. I'm just adding them for a little bit more nutritional value. And I'm using yellow potatoes. You can use russets. You can really use whatever you have. The starchier it is, the better. I still have them in water just so they weren't browning so bad. But the smaller the dice, the better it will work also. Some of these looks like I got kind of big. And then we're going to add in our 2 cups of chicken broth, or 2 cans of chicken broth. And slow draining today. Alright, y'all. So, I'm going to put the lid on. Seal it, close this to sealing. We're going to change our Ninja from saute to pressure. And then we're going to take it down to just 5 minutes and press start. It's going to take some time to build up to pressure, and once it does, we'll come back over and it'll cook for 5 minutes and we'll be done. Okay, y'all, so our pressure cook time is all done, and look how pretty it looks already. So while that was going, I just mixed about 2 tablespoons of cornstarch with about 2 tablespoons or equal parts of water. Now the little green thing floating in there is from my spoon. It's not something that's in there. But we're going to mix in our little cornstarch slurry. And this is just to thicken up the soup. I'm going to turn our pressure cooker back on to the saute function and push start. We're going to mix this around. We're just going to cook it for about 2 to 3 minutes while it thickens it up and kind of cooks off that cornstarchy taste. Now, I know y'all will see these big dandelion greens in here. Again, if you don't want that, don't put them in. It's not a requirement. It's just something extra that I wanted for nutritional value. I probably should have chopped them up a little bit, but I just pulled off the stems and tossed them in. Kind of a last minute thought. I think spinach would be something good to add a little bit of nutritional value to it also. But we're going to let that sit for a second. I have a block of cheddar cheese that I've shredded up also. And you're going to use about 2 cups. We love cheese, so I might end up going a little bit heavy on that. But we're going to add in a handful at a time just so we can melt it down and it doesn't get to be too much. We're going to turn our heat down to a low because this pot is still pretty hot and I don't want it to be like nasty hot and clumping everything up. I want the cheese to get nice and creamy and melted. So that first cup of cheese melted, or first little handful melted pretty fast. We're going to add in another little handful. Like I said, maybe about 2 cups worth. We end up using a little bit more than that, I'm sure. But I usually use an entire bag if I'm using the pre-shredded. And then we top it with some more also. But like I said, I use a block. As often as I can, I like to use the block. I feel like it tastes better than the stuff that's already shredded up. And then just shred it myself. Plus, I think the price is better by just doing a little bit of elbow work. But it's looking good already. The very last step we'll have before we serve it all up, well, is to taste test. But we're going to add in a cup of milk and a half a cup of heavy cream just to give it that creaminess that we're looking for. So, our last little handful of cheese. And then we'll save this last little bit for the top. And you see how thick that slurry got it already. The cheese helps with that a little bit too. Alright. So this is our milk and heavy cream. I just have them in the same little measuring cup. I'm going to pour that in. And you don't want this to curdle or clump or anything like that, so keep your heat low. You just want to get it to where it's heated through. It won't take very long at all, but if you turn it up to a boil, it's not going to taste very yummy. Like, you can clump it all up and you just, I don't know, it separates. It doesn't look good. So a low heat is better, and you see it has more of that yellow kind of color to it now that the milk and everything's in it, instead of kind of a gray brown. I'm going to grab a spoon. We're going to taste test because this should be our final flavor, except for the fact that it just needs to be a little bit warmer, and see if we need any extra salt, pepper, or anything. Perfect. Now, since the kids are eating this and they don't like this last item, you can choose to add it to yours or you can not. Toss in a can of Rotel. It's really good in this also. And the tomatoes, to me, say like cheeseburger or hamburger anyway, but my kids don't seem to like it in this. They just, I don't know why. They eat it in other things, but not in this. So I'm gonna put it all in a bowl and show y'all what the end result looks like. Alright y'all, so lunch is all ready. Super quick 5-minute little cheeseburger soup recipe in the pressure cooker. Again, you can do this in the slow cooker and let it cook all day. It's gonna take much longer, but for a quick and simple lunch. And we just tossed it with, or topped it with some croutons. I did end up finding Eleanor's bacon, so they'll be happy for this. And then a little bit of extra cheese. You could even put some sour cream on it if you like it to give it that little bit of tang. Or even some French onion soup would probably be good. Give it a nice little tang to it. But lunch is all ready and we're going to dig in. Thank y'all for joining us, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of our content. But as always, enjoy your meal.